Last week I posted a video about why I think Mansfield Park is generally a little bit less beloved than Jane Austen's other work, at least as far as modern audiences go. However, I do really like Mansfield Park, so I wanted to take an opportunity to talk about the things that I appreciate about it. First and foremost, this might actually surprise you, especially if you watched the previous video, but the protagonist. Fanny Price is a difficult character to relate to, but I think she's also a very admirable character and a very interesting one. While a lot of her values and priorities seem a bit 19th century, and for good reason, she is from the 19th century, I very much admire that she has a strong sense of what she believes is right and wrong, and the courage to stand up for herself and do what she thinks is right, regardless of what the people around her are doing. In her day-to-day life, Fanny is a little bit of a pushover. She can't really stand up for herself when she feels like she's being treated unfairly, and she has been kind of brought up with the idea that she shouldn't expect the same treatment as the other children in the family. So when it comes to things like Mary using her horse so much that Fanny herself can't go out riding, or Mrs. Norris treating her unfairly, she doesn't speak up for herself. However, when it comes to things that she thinks are very important, that she really does have strong feelings about, particularly things that she believes are morally right and wrong, or that impact her long-term happiness, she does stand up for herself. When her cousins and their friends are putting on a play and she believes that that is not something that they should be doing or that her uncle would approve of if he were there, she refuses to take part in it. When she is being put under a whole lot of pressure to marry Henry Crawford and really doesn't want to do that, doesn't think that he's a good person, doesn't think that she would be happy with him, she puts her foot down, she refuses, even when every member of her family very much pressures her to accept him. So while she doesn't have the kind of headstrong personality that some of Jane Austen's other protagonists do, she does have a sort of quiet strength about her and a willingness to defy anybody who tries to push her in a direction that she really feels is wrong or would make her unhappy in the long run. Another thing I very much appreciated about Mansfield Park was how the character of Henry Crawford and his relationship with Fanny was portrayed. At the surface, this seems like a very typical good girl, bad boy kind of romance, and that's not something that really appeals to me. Not that I never like that kind of dynamic, but it has to be really well done, and I don't like the implication that if a bad boy likes a good girl enough to try and change his ways for her, then that means she owes him something. She absolutely doesn't, and it should still be her choice whether she wants to be with him or with someone else or with no one at all. I feel like, though, a lot of the time that gets lost, and there's kind of an idea, if not outright stated, then at least implied, that if he likes you enough to totally change himself for you and become a better person, then, well, why would you not like him? Why would you not want to be with him? So I like that in this case, Fanny's opinion of Henry doesn't really change when he is clearly interested in her, and even when it seems like he's very serious about her and he's prepared to give up chasing after other girls and getting himself into trouble, he's not what she wants, and she's clear about that. The narrative is very much not centered around Henry and the fact that he wants a girl who he knows he'll have to be a better person to even have a chance with. It's very much centered around Fanny, and if she had gotten together with him, it would have been because she could tell that he honestly had either changed or that she had misinterpreted him before, and that her feelings as well had been changed by the experiences that they'd shared. But in this case, she doesn't want someone like Henry. She already has feelings for Edmund, and so she rejects him, and she is portrayed as being right to do so. And I'm not sure if that's because this was written before that kind of relationship dynamic between the good girl and the bad guy who changes for her became as commonplace and I would even say cliche as it has become, or if it's just that Jane Austen was looking at it from a different perspective and doing something different with it. But regardless, I very much appreciated how it was handled. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Fanny and Edmund as a couple either. But I do like that when she decided to make a choice based on her feelings and how she felt about these two men and what she thought would bring her happiness in the future, the narrative very much took her side and portrayed her opinion on the matter as being the most important factor. And then, last but not least, the other thing that I very much appreciate and find valuable about Mansfield Park is its social commentary. Now, all of Jane Austen's novels have social commentary to some degree, some much more or less than others. But it's there in all of her novels. For example, Pride and Prejudice explores the economic implications of marriage for young women in that era. What with the family estate being entailed to Mr. Collins, the pressure put on Elizabeth to marry him not because she has any feelings for him, but just for financial reasons and to ensure that her mother and sisters are provided for, Charlotte's eventual decision to go ahead and marry Mr. Collins, the fact that the Bennet girls have to marry well but face many obstacles to do so, like their mother's behavior, their sister Lydia's behavior, their family's connections not being quite up to scratch, and the fact that they don't really have good dowries. None of the novels have it in quite the amount that Mansfield Park does, though, where it's actually pretty much the focus of the story. Between the incredibly complicated Bertram family dynamics, the unpleasant implications about where their family's money comes from, portrayals of multiple unhappy marriages that were made for reasons other than love, and a lot of commentary about morality, the novel is brimming with criticism about society of the time. One part that I find particularly interesting is the portrayal of Fanny's cousin, who marries a man that she doesn't love because he is incredibly wealthy. She has absolute disdain for him, but she wants his money. And not very long into the marriage, she cheats on him, and he divorces her. Now, she is portrayed as being in the wrong for committing adultery, but the narrator also points out that many other people are at fault. Her husband for marrying a young woman who he must have known didn't have any real feelings for him. Henry Crawford, who's the one that she committed adultery with, because, that kind of thing takes two. And her father, who kind of offered her a way out if she wanted it, but was mostly too blinded by the guy's wealth to really take into account his daughter's future happiness. It's pointed out that while her life is ruined, none of these guys who had a hand in what ended up happening will face any serious consequences for it. The whole situation is portrayed with a very nuanced view of what happened and how many people's poor decisions led up to it, yet only one person ends up really taking the blame or suffering any serious consequences. So even though I don't find Mansfield Park to be quite as fun or entertaining as other novels by Jane Austen, and the characters I don't find to be quite as likable, I still think that it's a very interesting work of literature, and I'm glad to have read it.